and the Standing Finance Committee deliberations as well. In the last week, all members of the lower house in Trinidad were involved in the discussions on the Standing Finance Committee in the Parliament, and several matters arose which are very important and deserve further elaboration. So this morning we'll be dealing with some of those matters. I'm joined this morning by the Member of Parliament for Barataria Sawa, the Honorable Saddam Hussein, our Shadow Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs, who himself has raised very, very critical matters in the Parliament over the last 2 weeks or so in both his presentation and in the committee stage of the budget. So this morning, Mr. Hussein will first deal with some matters under the purview of legal affairs and the business of the Attorney General. And later in the proceedings, I will speak on some issues of infrastructure, housing, and security. So, MP Saddam Hussein.
Thank you very much, Dr. Munilal. Good morning again to all who are viewing us live on the social media platforms, those members of the media this morning who have joined us. We, as Dr. Munilal said, have some very critical issues arising out of the budget package that was presented by the Minister of Finance over the past 3 weeks or so in the Parliament. And during the Standing Finance Committee, it is the opportunity for the opposition to examine very closely the expenditure and the planned expenditure of various ministries and departments that fall under their purview. And as members of the opposition, we are able to then examine the books, which are the yellow books that the Minister of Finance would present to us. And these books will give us what would be the expenditure for the previous year and what is the projected expenditure for the next year. So it's really to measure the performance of the ministries. And over the last few weeks, we had the opportunity to basically, as we say in the legal term, cross-examine these ministers. And I dare say that they are wanting of credibility after that exercise. Because what happened in that Standing Finance Committee is that we exposed a systematic collapse of areas of national security and areas of legal affairs when it comes to the defense mechanism of the state. We also saw weaknesses and cracks in the system, and based on all that we have seen so far, is that there are two ministries in particular, which is the Office of the AG and the Ministry of National Security, that I would deal with in part also, is in need of critical care, because they have faced over the last 8 years of mismanagement, a lot of mismanagement, and we are seeing that bear fruit now in terms of the exposure and collapses within the departments of those various ministries. But I want to just look at the budget in a very overview per se. The Minister of Finance boasted and he said, okay, we have some goodies in this budget. He said this was a good budget. So he said he's going to give an increase in minimum wage, some back pay, and a textbook grant, but it's subject to a means test. But then let's look at the flip side. You have to now pay property tax in fiscal 2024. You don't have to pay increased electricity rates in fiscal 2024. You have to bear the increased cost of living in 2024. Increase rents, because property tax will obviously carry up the rates of rent. We have high food prices, which will also be affected because of the higher electricity rates. And then we are already burdened and saddled with high gas prices. So this minister or this government, their plan is that we must now sit down in the dark, open the window and get breached through the burglar proof after this hike in electricity rate. But that has shown that this government has no plan. Several times during the Standing Finance Committee, when we ask them to present a plan to us, they tell us, well, give us the money first and then we'll tell you the plan. That makes no sense. How did you then allocate that you need X amount of money to do a certain project if you had no plan in the first place? But let's deal with the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service first to begin with. Big plan. Their plan is to now recruit 1,000 more officers in fiscal 2024. 1,000 officers. And I distinctly remember Dr. Munilal asking the minister, well, we see a little increase in terms of the line item that deals with salaries. The minister said, well, we didn't cater for the 1,000 recruits in terms of adding monies for that line item and salaries to pay them. He said that's for back pay. So they have now put a plan on the table that they are going to hire 1,000 more recruits, but there is no additional budget for salaries.
Right.
There is no budget for salaries. So that's the first point. The second point is that we have advocated. You have SRP officers who do the exact same work as the regular officers, but they are being paid much less. Their terms and conditions of employment are less favorable than the regular officers. Our position was that let us absorb some of these SRPs into the 1,000 recruits, and because they do the exact same job, they are almost in every single department of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. And then coupled with that, to show that there is a lack of manpower in the TTPS, is that last year, in fiscal 2023, the taxpayers were burdened with $418 million in overtime payment. $418 million we had to pay in overtime payment to officers of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. We asked about vehicles. When the minister told us the figures for the vehicles, is that he said that there are 2,244 police vehicles in Trinidad and Tobago. Out of that, 1,609 vehicles are operational, 260 vehicles are non-operational, and 611 are to be disposed. So when you add up these figures, you have a little more than 50% of the vehicles actually on the road, and we don't even know if they're working at full capacity. Then when you see, then the Minister of Finance comes and says, well, look, we're going to buy more vehicles in fiscal 2024, but again, there is no allocation for things like fuel, no additional expenditure for things like fuel. And the problem is not just the vehicles alone. It is because there's a lack of maintenance. Because time and time again, they will invest money in buying vehicles for the TTPS, invest millions and millions of taxpayers' dollars, but there is no proper maintenance of these vehicles. And that is why we are saddled with so many non-operational vehicles and vehicles that are ready to be disposed of. And those are some of the issues we thought that we could have gotten some more clarification on. But the minister, as we all know, has been sleeping on the job for quite some time. And I hear the PNM using this narrative that, listen, if you change the minister, nothing will change. That is not true. The minister is in charge of administration of a ministry. It deals with management. The government themselves admitted that money is not the problem, but it is really an issue of management and implementation. So if the minister is in charge of management and implementation, then clearly if there's a change of minister, there might be some difference. I saw Mrs. Prasad Bisesa, our political leader, indicated that let Dr. Rowley take up the role of the Minister of National Security, because it clearly shows that Hines is unfit for the job. He's unfit for the job. But there's a bit of a mama guy, I should say, with this issue of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. Because I like to go back into the research and measure and fact check what these ministers tell us. Last year they told us the same thing, that they're going to buy more police vehicles. This year they come again and say they're going to buy more police vehicles. When you look at the budget for the purchase of police vehicles, they were allocated $20 million in the last fiscal. Out of that 20, they spent $15 million. When they asked for another allocation to purchase equipment for the police service, there's an allocation of $15 million. They spent $2 million. They spent $2 million. And then the minister gave us some kind of story about there's an issue with transitioning because of the procurement regime. Does the minister know that under the law, goods and services that are acquired for the purposes of national security are exempted? It was exempted from the Central Tenders Board Act, and it is now exempted from the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Property Act also. So you cannot give a story about procurement as the issue. They started off with blame Kamla, then they went to blame COVID, now it's blame procurement. I think they'll go back around and they'll blame Kamla again, soon enough. And that is the issue with respect to the TTPS. When you look at the fire service, I want to take you to, again, the draft estimates of the developmental program. I think the Minister of National Security had said that there are enough breathing apparatus in the fire service. He said that when he was asked by MP Rodney Charles that question. When you look again at the books, you look at the developmental program for national security under the Service of Fire Service, purchase of vehicles and equipment for the fire service. They were given a spend of $2 million. You know what they spent? $500,000. $500,000. So I just told you that money was not the issue. It is an issue of management. An issue of management. I don't know if this $500,000 pay for the ladder that cost us what?
Oh, $1 million.
$1 million in ladder. But they couldn't buy breathing apparatus. And then the minister says that, look, we have breathing apparatus that is sufficient for the fire service. I think the president of the Fire Service Association had to come out early in the morning on one of those morning programs to debunk what the minister had to say and say, look, officers' life are at risk because we don't have proper equipment. We don't have proper equipment. So it's either the minister lied to the parliament or he misled the entire country, because what he is saying is not what the fire officers are saying. Look at the prison service now. The prison service has been saddled with issues for the past 8 years under this government. During the budget debate, I think on the eve on which myself, Dr. Munilal, contributed on the budget debate, there was an attempted assassination on the life of the Deputy Commissioner of Prisons. Dr. Munilal indicated that that had been a collapse of the intelligence apparatus and units in Trinidad and Tobago under the national security framework. SSA gets a budget of $250 million last year. Spend that, and they couldn't detect that there was a threat on the life of the Deputy Commissioner of Prisons. That budget also goes towards CCTV cameras. The minister has confirmed to us in the SFC that they have built out the backbone. The minister without a spine built out the backbone for the CCTV camera, but they didn't install no cameras as yet. Hopefully we'll get those cameras in 2024. Then, there's an issue with respect to, let me get back to the prison service. The prison service has told the Commissioner of Police, look, by a letter, they wrote to the Commissioner of Police on the 25th of May 2023. And the Commissioner of Police responded to them. And the letter was about a meeting on the safety and security of prison officers. This is the response of the Commissioner of Police after they have sent her letter on May. So Prison Service sent a letter to the Commissioner in May 25th asking for a meeting to discuss the safety and security of prison officers. The Commissioner of Police, by an email dated 29 June 2023 with this letter, said, look, we understand that you need to meet us. We will contact you and confirm the date and time when she's available to meet with you. It has been about what? This was in May, June, July, August, September. The prison officers had to write back the commissioner in September to remind her about this urgent meeting, about the safety and security of prison officers. Madam Commissioner, I saw the front page of the Sunday Express says, cops angry with Ella. Madam Commissioner, you should act now because the prison officers may soon be angry with you also. You have to take the mantle up and assist these officers in terms of their safety. And I want to throw your mind back to another issue. In February 2023 of this year, we passed a law in the Parliament with respect to granting prison officers firearms through the office of the Commissioner of Prisons, because they indicated that there was some lacuna in the law and it was prompted because of a High Court action. The opposition, the government, we debated the bill. The bill was passed in February 2023. So prison officers can get firearms when they are off duty, and these would be issued by the Commissioner of Prisons. This is the bill here, Act 2 of 2023. This bill in it has a proclamation clause. Do you know, up until today, we checked the legal notices, the bill has not been proclaimed. The prison officers, again, the Prison Officers Association by letter dated the 25th of August, had to write the Honorable Minister asking them what is the status of the proclamation of the Firearms Amendment Act 2023. They are saying here that this amendment is not yet in force and cannot be implemented until the procurement date is set by the Cabinet and approved by the President. This delay has caused some frustration and anxiety amongst prison officers who are waiting for this amendment to take effect. We request that you do everything in your power to expedite this process and to communicate with the Cabinet and the President on this matter. The prison officers are begging in this country for safety and security. Who will guard the guards? Who will guard the guards? So I leave those very few issues there with respect to the issues relating to national security. I now want to move on to another very important office in this country, which is the Office of the Attorney General. Under the Office of the Attorney General, there are several departments. And one of those departments is the Solicitor General's office. And the Solicitor General's office is responsible for defending the state, Trinidad and Tobago, in civil matters. I asked the Attorney General what is taking place at that office, because we have seen many reports in Trinidad and Tobago with what is taking place with cases that are being filed against the government. There is a lack of human resource at that office. The Attorney General reported that there are 74 positions at the Office of the Solicitor General. 29 are filled and 45 are vacant.
Right.
That means there's a 60% vacancy at the Office of the Solicitor General. 60% vacancy. There are more vacancies than bodies at the Office of the Solicitor General. Look, I want to just give you an example to show you that department is also on the brink of collapse, if it has not collapsed as yet. Today, the Trinidad Guardian outlined these are nine matters in which between January 2019 and October 2023, the state pays over $20 million in compensation for wrongful dismissals. Imagine this. Imagine the government has to pay $20 million. Well, not the government, the taxpayers have to pay $20 million to persons who they have wrongfully dismissed. And when you look at the article, it says in most of these claims, there was a claim of political victimization. When Dr. Rowley came in power in 2015, he said he will fire no one. But here he has to pay $20 million for wrongful dismissal claims. Not him, the government, on the basis of wrongful dismissals. $20 million. The PNM government that is in charge now. $20 million. And when you look at what takes place in the Office of the Solicitor General, when you're in court, we are governed by something called the Civil Proceedings Rules. So those things are time sensitive. A judge will set deadlines. You have to comply with these deadlines. If you don't, sanctions will apply. You can lose the case based on the fact that you didn't file something. And I'll explain that when we go on to the $20 million missing file case. And the state has been saddled with default judgments because they haven't filed defenses in the matter. They are always filing extension of time applications for more time to file their documents. Relief from sanctions applications. That is most of the work of the Solicitor General now, because, and you can't blame the attorneys there because there's a vacancy of what, 60% inside there. And one has to wonder whether or not there's a deliberate attempt to understaff the Office of the Solicitor General so they could farm out briefs
Correct.
to their friends and financiers in the legal profession. Because last year, the government spent the highest ever spend on legal fees in the Office of the AG since our independence. A spend of $195 million alone from the Office of the Attorney General. $195 million they have spent on legal fees. And that is adding up to the $1.1 billion that they have spent over the last 8 years in legal fees since they are in power. So I want to go on to one matter in particular, which I examined the Attorney General on in the Standing Finance Committee, which was the missing file report. The genesis of that was the Vindra Naipal Kuhlman trial. The accused in that matter filed a claim against the state. And the claim was filed, served on the Office of the Attorney General. but the Office of the Attorney General failed to file a defense in the matter. Because they failed to file a defense in the matter, it meant that the accused men got judgment against the state. When the matter went for an assessment to determine how much money they would have been entitled to, the courts awarded that these men will be entitled to $20 million. $20 million. Because the state failed again to file a defense in the matter. So the Attorney General immediately launched an investigation into the missing file report. He hired one Stanley John, paid Stanley John $430,000. He hired one Pamela Hines, I believe, $125,000. One Mr. Scott, $100,000. And Mr. Nelson, QC, I believe, his fee was undisclosed. But when we asked the AG, what is the global amount for this file so far, he said it's about $1 million. $1 million that we spent to investigate a file that was not missing in the first place. But then, the terms of reference of that investigation was that they will compile a report in terms of the operations of the Office of the Solicitor General. None of us have seen that report as yet. We have paid monies for that report, and the taxpayers are not privy to that report. Today we call on the Attorney General to make that Stanley John report in the office, in terms of the operations of the Office of the Attorney General, public. He must make that report public. He must not hide that report. Then I move on to the other issue with respect to the Office of the DPP. And this is one of the biggest issues we have seen over the last few days. The Office of the DPP is housed right here on Richmond Street at Winshaw Building. When I was a prosecutor, I was right there. And I must tell you, that place is not conducive for operation. While I was there, it was a very small cubicle, and 3 prosecutors had to share one office, one computer. And that is what that building looks like. So the Office of the DPP was earmarked to be moved to Park Street. And that, according to the Attorney General, for the last 3 years in terms of rent, renovation, and other matters relating to the acquisition of rental of that building, cost the taxpayers $55 million. $55 million. We have heard what the Attorney General had to say in this matter. We would like to hear what the DPP now has to say on the matter. Because I don't really trust the government when they say anything. Especially the AG. I think he went on affidavit and told untruths to a foreign court before. So I don't know if I can trust what that gentleman has to tell us. But when Dr. Munilal pressed the Attorney General and asked him who is to be blamed with respect to that $55 million spend or waste on that building in Port of Spain that not a single soul may have occupied, the Attorney General could not tell us who is to be blamed. That was a very important matter. He then confirmed that the lease has in fact been terminated. Members of the media, I want to take you to one Joint Select Committee report in 2016. This was the JSC on Finance and Legal Affairs. And the Office of the DPP has been calling for financial autonomy for quite some time. And I think it's time now that the government gives the Director of Public Prosecution financial autonomy and independence with respect to administrative issues. And I'll just read an excerpt from this report to put it in context for you so that you understand the relationship between the Office of the DPP and the Office of the Attorney General. So it says, this is the JSC report. The Office of the DPP is not financially autonomous, but rather is treated as a department under the administrative jurisdiction of the Ministry of the Attorney General and Legal Affairs. The existing relationship between the DPP's office and the AG's office requires the DPP to approach the Ministry for approval in hiring of staff, the acquisition of plant and equipment to support its operation. An example of this dependency was illustrated by the fact that the DPP had to consult with the Office of the Attorney General to 1. Provide a risk allowance for his staff, 2. Recruit additional legal officers and legal counsel, and 3. Acquire additional accommodation in Port of Spain, San Fernando and Tobago. The Ministry advised the committee that the Cabinet and the Budget Division are responsible for giving the Office of the DPP its own budget. The ministry also indicated that it has engaged a contractor to treat with issues related to the equipment with respect to the office of the DPP. So since 2016, there's a report of the Parliament that tells us that the office of the DPP ought to be financially autonomous and independent of the office of the AG. Because the office of the AG operates in a political environment, whereas the Constitution sets up the DPP as having the sole responsibility for criminal prosecution in Trinidad, free from political interference or political interference, sorry. And I leave those issues there with respect to the office of the AG. And the last issue I wish to touch upon is that of the Integrity Commission. The Integrity Commission has been stifled, has been starved of resources, and it is on the brink of, I believe, being shut down. And I say this because it comes out of the annual report of the Integrity Commission that was filed in Parliament for fiscal 2023. And the Integrity Commission is confirming to the Parliament that it is facing a financial stranglehold owing to deficient and significant depleted budgets. Their budget was reduced in 2015, from $26 million to now $8.6 million. From $26 million, their budget was reduced, started, and then it was reduced to $8.6 million. They're complaining that they have investigations, but they have no money to pay staff. They have staff right now, and they may not be able to pay those staff. And also, they have matters that require legal fees to be paid, and they may not have money to pay legal fees. But yet, they can find, this government could find $1 million to pay for a file that was never missing. They could find $55 million to pay for a building that was never occupied. And they can find several hundreds of million dollars, I think Dr. Munilal will explain later, to do other things, but not to staff the Integrity Commission. Today I call on the government and ask them, why are you afraid of the Integrity Commission? Why are you afraid? Is the government's plan to shut down the Integrity Commission? Under the line item that deals with contract employment, not a single dollar was allocated for the Integrity Commission for fiscal 2024, and they are here complaining about staff. And when I asked the Minister of Finance, his response was he didn't see the report. You believe that? You believe Colm Imbit didn't see the Integrity Commission annual report that was laid in the Parliament? He is deemed to have had notice of that report. He was the acting Prime Minister at the time when he confirmed that, you know. We must ask the government today, why are they afraid of the Integrity Commission? And I leave these very few issues here with you today, and I now pass you on to Dr. Munilal.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Saddam Hussein, the Member of Parliament for Barataria Sawa, for the comprehensive overview of some of the issues engaging the attention of the opposition and the country in the last 7 days or so. And they are very serious matters dealing with accountability, governance, corruption, and some of those issues, I imagine, will continue to occupy our attention as we move forward. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, this morning we come to you in our press conference to deal with several matters, and I would be addressing my mind to some of the issues. A couple of these issues actually overlap with some of the information already divulged by MP Hussein, so I will not go into detail on some of those issues as they relate to the issues of procuring professional and legal services and so on, and the cost involved in doing that. But this morning I also wanted to begin, before I get to the issues of politics and so on behalf of the opposition leader, the Honorable Kamla Prasad Bisesa, the United National Congress, and the parliamentary opposition, to express our very deepest condolences to the friends and family of the late B.C. Perez. And for those of you who may not know, it is Basil Carlos Perez, affectionately, fondly called B.C. Perez, who we have known for a very long time. And I offer my personal condolences to Joe and the rest of the family members on his passing. He has been a columnist, journalist, reporter, attorney at law, prominent attorney at law in this country for several decades, and had given his analysis. I believe his column was "Thank God It's Friday," weekly column that brought to life issues of current affairs and issues of social, economic, and political nature. So he will be missed. He has left quite a legacy. I have great and fond memories of him in and around the parliamentary precincts, among the first to have a sort of knapsack bag moving with, and always elegantly, if not casually dressed. But we will miss him, and again, condolences and our sympathy from the opposition to his family, and we are extremely proud to have known him and happy, and I'm sure he's leaving a great legacy, and more will be told in the coming hours. On the matter of attire, I asked the nation to notice that both myself and Mr. Hussein are properly attired for this Sunday morning event. We were not rushing by in Port of Spain somewhere, and Mr. Gibbs and others grabbed us with our hoodie and our track top and so on. I took note of that event, and I just wanted to say in passing, because it's not my intention at all to speak on the Prime Minister's lack of attire. But for the Prime Minister, who has this pascha for talking about Mrs. Prasad Bisesa and so on, it was very unfortunate that, according to Her Excellency Saunders, I believe, he was dragged from the corridor and forced almost to present himself in a closing press conference that would have been planned and known to be taking place. And regrettably, Prime Minister Skirt, I believe, had to rush off because of an incoming hurricane. Notwithstanding Excellency Irfan Ali was present and properly attired for the event, it was still necessary for Dr. Rowley to present himself in that attire. And regrettably, he did not have 10 minutes to put on a shirt and a blazer before arriving on the stage. So we believe it is what it is, and we are hoping that the Prime Minister, would explain himself further, because the explanation also begs another question. The foreign ambassador minister indicated that Dr. Rowley was traveling, so therefore he goes to travel as head of government using VIP lounge and airport facilities and so on of the highest order. He goes to travel this way. It is something I leave right there. I say no more. Some of us have a different view, but we'll deal with that. The other matter I'd like to open with is that the society, as we know, has collapsed in terms of cohesion, in terms of discipline, whether it's in the school system, whether it's in the street. There's a complete breakdown of discipline. There's a complete collapse of institutions. And regrettably, in the last few hours, we had a dramatic depiction of this lack of tolerance and appreciation. I join our parliamentary colleague, the Honorable David Lee, Chief Whip in our parliament, in condemning what happened in the last few hours at Taruba, San Fernando, in the constituency of Pointe-a-Pierre, where vandals and persons up to no good at all apparently invaded the Ram Leela space at the Taruba Recreation Ground and burnt to the ground all the props and costumes and items that have been stored there for the continuation of the Ram Leela festival, which was due to end today, I believe, with the symbolic burning of the demon king Ravan. And in the last few hours, we are told that persons invaded the ground and burnt to the ground all the items and so on, including the costumes and so on. I join Dr. Lee, who has already condemned this horrible event. Dr. Lee has expressed his condemnation and his deep concern that this speaks to a certain type of intolerance, a certain type of hate that this society is witnessing. And I say this in the context that when we have governance as we do now, with a disrespect for institution, with a disrespect for religion, with a disrespect for culture, these things are really manifestation of something much deeper, but something much higher in the society. So I leave that there as well. Members of the press, a few matters I would wish to raise now. And the first issue concerns a matter that arose quite recently in the Parliament. In the Parliament, in our discussions and analysis of the budget and budgetary documents, Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister and Minister of Energy, the Honourable Stuart Young, revealed in the Parliament, I think he was pushed into revealing because of the nature of that committee meeting, where the Permanent Secretary, I believe, one Maurice Sweet, was at his side. And when asked as to the status and the money spent on a commission of inquiry into the South Solomon Hochoy Highway to Point Fortin, he was forced and compelled because of the circumstances to reveal that they had spent to this time 11 million Trinidad and Tobago dollars on a commission of inquiry that has not had one public meeting, that has not had one private meeting that we are aware of, that has done absolutely nothing. $11 million spent on that. Mr. Young had to confess to that because of that event where he was given that information in the heat of the moment, so to speak, and he did not have time to properly analyze what he was going to do. And he said $11 million. I have in my hand here a series of articles from the newspapers. I can fan them for you here, and you can see in doing my research on this matter. And there's no need to read all of these documents to you at all. I just want to tell you, it was in July 2019 that the government established and sought to establish a commission of inquiry into the land acquisition of the San Fernando to Point Fortin extension. They appointed the former Justice Sebastian Venture, a gentleman who was on the Integrity Commission, who in 2015 or thereabout, I believe, resigned from the Integrity Commission, indicating that he was not satisfied that the Emailgate matter should have been closed. And then he becomes the chairman of a commission of inquiry to investigate the former Prime Minister and ministers who themselves, their names were called in the Emailgate matter. So we had raised that matter. But anyway, 2019, you can see here, government announces commission of inquiry into highway. 2019, January start date for inquiry, is the Guardian, into Point Fortin. That's January 2020 start date. Prime Minister comes after, and indicate that they are starting in the new year, 2020, January. Then Alwari, then Attorney General, said, no, we are starting after Carnival. So every time a holiday comes, we start after the holiday. But the UNC had taken a position in July 2019, is very important. We knocked the fast of the Commission of Inquiry. I indicated that this was really a waste of money, a waste of time. It was part of a political stunt. The opposition leader, the Honorable Kamala Prasad Bisesa, indicated as well that this was an expensive witch hunt, to use her term. I indicated that it was a witch hunt in which they will spend millions of dollars and they will catch no witches. This is 2020 I'm talking about. Then we move on. Point Fortin Highway land inquiry starts in November. This is 2021. We reach 2021 November. COVID. So it will start now after Diwali. So first Christmas, then Carnival, then Diwali comes. So it will start. Alwari says this thing will start and it will proceed. Then the COVID comes. And just for the record, Sebastian Venture, chairman. The other commissioner was one Mr. Gregory Delsing. The legal team was one Mr. Reginald Armour, senior counsel, and others. So Mr. Reginald Armour got himself involved in this matter early o'clock in 2021. No commission meet, nothing happens. Members of the press. The Prime Minister then attempted to expand the scope of the commission to include other matters. Not only properties, but matters concerning the contractual relations. The Prime Minister has a bee in his bonnet. And that bee has to do with the issue of a bond that apparently he's claiming changed days before the UNC partnership demitted office. I'll come to that in a matter of time, because he claims that we never responded when I responded about 25 times. So that was it. Then we're coming up. I'm just taking you through the chronology. That is a repetition. Munilal calls on retired judge to quit highway inquiry. This is September 2021. We raised the Emailgate matter and things, so we don't want to repeat that. Then Point Fortin Highway Commission prepares to begin hearing soon. Newsday, 4th April 2022. Oh, we reached 2022. April now. Point Fortin will be ready to begin. Getting ready to start to sit. That was what they termed it. Okay, we're going again. Then we have Young. Legal fees cap for Commission of Inquiry into Point Fortin, The Guardian, 14th of May 2022. And in response to a question by the Honorable Kamla Prasad Bissessa, Minister Young, who said that they had already paid by that day, 2022 May, just see where we are going, they had paid a couple $1 million, well, $4.2 million had been allocated by 2022 to this project. Members of the press do note that he said that they had capped the fees to be incurred in this matter. We move on again, Newsday. OS contract change added to Point Fortin Highway. This is June 2022. June 2022, they announced that this, chaired by Sebastian Venter and so on, they had increased their scope of works. But it's very instructive, members of the press, that in May 2022, May, it was the 16th of May, I will never forget that day so long as I live, and even after. I will never forget. If on that day, I had slept away, the country would not know that a London arbitration panel had delivered a ruling against NIDCO to the tune of around $856 million, because it was before arbitration. This matter of OS and NIDCO, the parties. We came to the Parliament, I had the report in my hand. When I raised those issues in the report and held the report, half the government fainted away, the next half ran. They couldn't believe that we had the report. So they had lost on this matter. NIDCO had to pay 126 million United States dollars, we believe is about 876 million TT or so on, for wrongfully terminating the contract with OS. In that ruling, I just want to remind members of the public, they spoke in detail that the government frustrated the contract. The government did not give a regular and timely payment to OS, which led OS to fire, not to fire, but to be unable to pay local contractors. We had dozens of local contractors there. Local workers, when we hear OS, we thought of Brazil, but now we know local contractors, local workers. The government failed to pay. They frustrate the contract. They had all type of minor issues they were raising, so they frustrate everything. OS pack up and gone. OS goes to an arbitration. They won the arbitration. So the government did not tell us the report. I told them the report. Now here this one. The Prime Minister raises this problem that 72 hours before the 2015 election, there was an issue of shifting control of an insurance bond money from NIDCO to OS. And it had to do with a particular clause 15 and so on. We have explained 10,000 times that that was done by NIDCO. Dr. Carson Charles explained that the government of Trinidad and Tobago was owing OS monies, and we had to pay money for work to continue on that highway that Rowley went and talked for 2 hours the other day. One disgusting speech for 2 hours to open 3 segments of the highway. I want to alert you, yesterday I took a drive on that highway, and I'm coming to you in a few minutes on that. So Dr. Rowley goes now and he says this insurance bond scam that the former administration, that Carson Charles explained that when we were owing hundreds of millions of dollars to OS, what they did, they offset through using the bond, that they would have access to the bond and it will cover some costs involved in the highway so that work will continue. We were very careful. We wanted to finish that highway by 2016-2017. We wanted to complete a highway from Port of Spain to Point Fortin. We faced a man protesting on the ground, starving and thing over that project, you know. So we wanted to finish it, and part of the issue concerning the bond had to do with getting monies into the hand of the contractor, which we owe, which the government of Trinidad and Tobago owe, which if the judge rules against the government, we still owe. And I took note, Rowley's talking about what if a judge wake up one day and drink babash, we lose $1 billion. Now if Rudolph Munilal say that you're going to get a letter from the judiciary, the registrar, the comptroller, the law association, the Southern Association, the Eastern Association, the Tobago Group, if I had said that. Mr. Rowley said that, but notice nobody said nothing, huh? No lawyers are coming out and say how you could be describing judges like this to suggest a man will be drinking babash or brandy or something and give you a ruling against you. I leave that there because I don't want those letters. So the matter of the insurance bond was explained by Dr. Charles and others many times. Let me continue that. What they don't tell you is that OS that was given that contract was adopted as the preferred bidder for that project by a PNM government under Patrick Manning. In May 2024, there was an election, 2024-2010. May 2010? Do you know that election was on Monday night, as all elections are in Trinidad? Do you know the Tuesday morning when it had no government in place, when for all intents and purposes, Mr. Manning, I believe, was still the Prime Minister, they gave a letter to OS NIDCO indicating that you are now the preferred bidder, and we have accepted in a general way that the preferred bidder things come first before a letter of award and contract and so on. They gave a letter when the country had no, at least when we did the thing with the bond, it had a government. It had no government the day after election. Manning had lost 29-12 or something like that. And they went, NIDCO went without a minister in place. Now, on the 25th of May 2010, there was no human being could stand up and say, I'm the Minister of Works. Because the last one, well, he lose election the day before he gone. And we did not swear in a cabinet until the end of that week, more or less.
Tuesday.
The Thursday, when a Minister of Works would have been appointed. So on a day when it had no Minister of Works existing in this country, NIDCO goes and gives a letter. So they couldn't wait about 4 or 5 days and consult the new minister. They couldn't wait and say, look, a new government is in place. Let us go to the new government and get. But Rowley talks about what, 2015. He forgot 2010 when he was in government. In any event, I'm moving forward. Commission of Inquiry, 5 million, look, June 2022. Orupuch MP Udal Monila raised concerns over government approval of 5 million for the Commission of Inquiry, which has not had one single meeting. This is 2022. I raise a concern of $5 million allocated. Huh? Here this one. We're going again. Aha! We reach where we want to reach. This Commission of Inquiry has changed a commissioner. Mr. Gregory Delsing resigned from that task because he claimed that there were parties involved who he had represented before. And that's fine. Amor had left as well. Today we asked Reginald Amor, Attorney General, how much money did you make from the Commission of Inquiry into the highway to Point 14? That hasn't started yet. Because we are told in Parliament last week, we have the video of Stuart Young, they have expended so far not 4 million, not 5 million, not 6 million, $11 million expended on a Commission of Inquiry that did not meet. We have the video on that matter. It was so bad that when I left the chamber, I called all my colleagues. I called them one by one, or individually. And I asked them, I said, tell me something, did I hear correct inside here? Just tell me, did I hear 11 million they spent? I was so disoriented that I may have heard wrongly, and then I go and make a fool of myself now talking. Then my colleagues confirmed with me, yes. You know, I only issued a press release when I got the video and audio. I was so sure that it couldn't be $11 million on a Commission of Inquiry that has not met. They changed the commissioner. One Hurricane came in as a commissioner. No, Hurricane is the footballer. Adrian Kane came in as a commissioner. I'm a fan of Tottenham as well. That's the problem here. And he left. Adrian Kane came in as a commissioner. I am told he don't live in the jurisdiction. So they fly him in first class to attend meeting if he has to attend meeting and he is being paid. We want to know now. I am calling for public independent inquiry into the Commission of Inquiry into the Solomon Hochoy Highway extension. This is outrageous. It is scandalous that $11 million gone down the drain. And to our knowledge, they have not even sit on a table and had one meeting yet. They have not even asked the public for submissions from some of us who might be involved. Absolutely nothing. 11 million gone. Commissioner change. Terms of reference change. Legal counsel change. but money didn't change.
Attorney General.
Attorney General change, but it is not small change. $11 million gone, and we must investigate that. Where did this money go on? Ventor said in a recent interview, I believe it was, the chairman said, I like his voice, in a telephone interview with the Sunday Guardian on Tuesday, this is January 2023, Ventor said, they are not serious, man. I quote, they are not serious, man. Up to now, we have not even had the instrument of appointment amended since the Prime Minister extended the term of reference. So we don't know what is happening there, but money going. And this is what Mr. Hussein was alerting us to. Money going this way for professional legal fees. I just want to add one thing. A question was asked in the Parliament. This here is an excerpt from Hansard in my hand. When Honorable Ravi Ratiram asked a question this week, I think sitting in for Minister Kazim Hussain was Honorable Avinash Singh, who is Minister of State in the Ministry of Agriculture. And they asked about a certain loan that EMBDC took. EMBDC, and it is a new item. So it is not an item from the partnership government and so on. New. I think I do have the, yes. So this is how it look in the yellow book, right? Which we have the books as well. And this is the account from Hansard. So we know what we're talking about when we talk. The yellow book, Ministry of Agriculture, you will see it there. They took a loan for $327 million, EMBDC, that cannot pick up garbage in Picton settlement in South Trinidad where they manage a estate. EMBDC is today managing estates. Lots of land that we developed in Pitimoon, in Exchange, in Picton, some places again, Caroni Savannah Road and so on. They cannot pick up garbage. They cannot provide water to residents, but took a loan for $327 million to what? To treat with legal obligations. That's what they do it for. High court matter. In a high court matter. Now, several matters arise. How can the EMBDC borrow $327 million? Are they paying in those cases where they sue contractors, sue former government ministers and officers of the partnership government? Are you using $337 million to pay legal bills, professional bills, accounting fees and so on for forensic work? So you are borrowing money to return to friends and family. They are borrowing money to give to friends and family. Look at this. And you know how much approved this year in this budget? Here this one, man. $327 million. $54 million and $10 million is $64 million for principal and interest. $64 million in 1 year to pay interest and principal on a loan of $327 million that goes to their friend and their family in all those professional organizations and office. That is what EMBDC is up to. That is a scandal. Yesterday I had the opportunity, I took a drive from San Fernando to Point Fortin. Now of course I'm excited. This is a partnership project. Kamla Prasad Bisesa became the first Prime Minister since Eric Williams announced it in 1962 to start that highway, and by 2015 several segments were opened. The segment from San Fernando to Dede, the one from Rosilac, that side, opened by Kamla Prasad Bisesa and the partnership government. So we are proud of that project. That is our project. We're proud. I went yesterday. Now when I tell people, this is not a highway from Port of Spain to Point Fortin. Huh? This is not a highway. Those of you who think we had conceived a highway from Port of Spain to Point Fortin. When you take the highway here from the lighthouse, the next time you stop should be in Point Fortin. That is the partnership design and plan. What they have done is open a highway with 4 missing pieces. There are 4 pieces of the highway missing. I want to tell you, go and drive now from Port of Spain to Dede. When you reach Dede, you can't go to Point Fortin. You will end up in something called the Gucharan River. There's a river that at the end of Dede is called the Gucharan River. If you continue along the highway, you will end up in the Gucharan River because the highway stops at Dede. You have to worm your way, get ways, because not all of us from South and thing. Get ways, or Google, not Google. Google Map. Get ways are one of those things to find your way, worm your way around something called the M2 Ring Road or something like that, through Woodland, through Laramine, and find yourself out on the mosquito crack. So one, there's no highway to Point Fortin. They have changed the design. You go to Dede and you find your way somehow to Laramine side because there's no, the highway stops. There is our abandoned piece of highway with bridge between Dede and what we will say Mondesir, that leg. Now assuming you have your ways, you get yourself to the mosquito crack. It's a one lane now because there is a mosquito crack. Part of the highway is not functioning. It mash up. We have no report on that. We are told it's 64 million plus to repair it. To this day, Mr. Sinanan has not given us a report on what happened there. So that's two pieces. It's a logo. It's like an item you build with Lego now. Lego, yeah. And four pieces missing. So you have to kind of borrow from some other game and put it together. So the mosquito crack. When you go down now to Otaheite side, you will see that you have to come off the highway and go through a two-lane for about 10 minutes or so, through a two-lane road, Southern Main Road, I imagine, to get back onto the highway. Now that is why you have Joyce Cafe and Jack Corner and thing, you know. So you will see that, because, I mean, Jack Corner and Joyce Cafe can't be on the highway. Eh? So you go through that, you pass a set of cafe and shops and so on. Then you bust back out on the highway and you go down again. And then you have between Guapo and Vance, wherever that is always called, another piece where you come off again to find now Point Fortin. There are four missing pieces of the highway. They are the only government that could open a highway with four missing pieces. And of course, several of those areas require additional works. So Rowley goes beating his chest for 2 hours for a highway with four missing pieces. That is what they open. Now, I want to make the point that in all fairness, the quality of the work looks good. Those are local contractors who have done a lot of work with us over the years. The pieces that are there, we have no complaint about the work, the workmanship and so on. It looked good. But now I want to appeal to the government, having done all of that. Please, there are serious issues there. There are issues of signage, of security and safety devices for the road. They have no flickering lights. There are sharp corners and turns there, where if you are not accustomed and you are not familiar for one reason or another, you will run off the tracks. That road down there without safety devices, safety equipment, proper signage, it will be like a scale electric. You know when you're making scale electric, every now and then the car run off the track? That is the condition. I am happy to announce that I only got lost once. And that wasn't coming back, because again, I didn't see signs telling me something. I ended up in a road with bush on the two sides, and then I knew I had to spin around and get back on the highway. So I was fortunate. What happens in the night time? What happens late evening and dark hours and so on? So there is need for signage. There is need for proper safety devices, including big bag lights and some of those type of things, to tell people that you are coming up to a place, you know, where the road ends. You know, you have to tell people that way before. We can't just be coming down on a highway and you only have less than a quarter mile to decide that you have to get on a lane. So there are concerns about that. And not surprisingly, we have had 2 fatalities on that highway, I think a day or two after it opened, because there is need for a lot of work concerning safety, security with devices. Again, the workmanship I'm not complaining about, but when you leave the highway, some of those runoff roads, so to speak, are sharp, and you need to have proper painting and so on for the road with whatever is the technology they use for that. So I leave it there, and I want to tell Rowley that I don't want to say much more. When you finish a highway, come and talk to us. When you finish the highway. The next matter, I raised the AMBDC matter, already we're going to go there. Last week, a matter arose concerning HDC. And I just saw this in my hand last week, as some of you remember. We had a front page like this. The minister boasting the lowest unemployment rate in years we had. Lowest unemployment rate in years. Friday, you couldn't go to C3 in South Trinidad. If you try to go there, it had more traffic Friday last than any day during the Christmas season.
People line up hundreds, rush for Guyana jobs. In would say lowest unemployment we had in decades. People rushing to go to Guyana for jobs, leaving Trinidad. And this is a shame and a disgrace in the sense that we ought to have jobs in Trinidad and Tobago, investment and so on. The HDC I had during the debate, I raised a matter on HDC. I have the report in my hand. This is a report from a technical team, CEP. Again, I don't want to go through the report again and go in detail with the report. This speaks of a particular housing development in Trestrail, Gabody, Trinidad, and the East-West Corridor, where they are rushing to build houses on the corridor. And 2 or 3 of these zones, they call it zones, with townhouses, have been found wanting. And when you read this report, which I did in Parliament, the Hansard is there, it speaks about a disaster. A disaster. It speaks about a disaster in the making. This tells us that there are serious foundation problems with the foundation, serious problems with stabilization of the entire superstructure, meaning foundation housing, problems with walls in those housing units, no ring beam to hold on a roof, the quality of the floors are defective, they cannot take load of human being or whatever equipment. When you buy a house, of course, you want to get a fridge, you want to get a washing machine, you want to get stove and so on. It cannot take load, those floors. The soil, apparently, they did not do proper foundation. And now they are talking, according to this report, about injecting the soil. So they have to go on the side with a massive injection needle of some kind with concrete and inject the soil. Now, this report also speaks of demolition of 110 townhouses. This costs $100 million. It is bigger than Las Alturas. And Ms. Robinson Reggie is talking in the Parliament about when I was in office 8 years ago, some figure she can't find money. But if she can't find money, she's blind. All the documents are there in the HDC, in the Ministry of Housing. If you can't find money, but I know she has a difficulty with location of monies and finding this, finding that, explaining this, explaining that. So I personally did not take umbrage because I know Minister Robinson Regis has had a difficulty many years now with finding and accounting for funds. And she raised the issue of HDC. I don't want to get into that. NLCB loan, well, that is not a matter I know of at all. I know NLCB for Lotto and Playway and so on. I don't know that they give loan to anybody. So we don't want to, I don't have time for that right now. I want to tell Ms. Robinson Regis, we built 7,000 houses when we were there 2010 to 2015. Not one fall down. We built fire station, Mayaro, started Pinal. We built 9 police stations, not one fall down. We built the children hospital, the teaching hospital, started Arima, started Point Fortin, nothing fall down. Everything falling down and collapsing around them. Whether it's the highway, it's Las Alturas, it's Trestrail. So this Trestrail matter is a serious matter. And I just want to make a couple points before I move along. So they have problems with the infrastructure, but Mrs. Robinson Regis said in Parliament, Thursday, I believe, in the Ministry of Housing examination, that the HDC is responsible for the infrastructure of the entire estate. So I am not here blaming contractor. Many of these contractors worked with us. They do good work. We know them. We know of them. Their work. And I am told this is a fault of the HDC board and management. And today I call for a proper independent investigation into the HDC, its board and management on the corruption, waste and mismanagement at Trestrail. $100 million gone. Do you know it will take $200 million to fix the $100 million? Yeah. What is required is technical, specialist type of companies, equipment. It's like the Red House and the, you know, what they call around the Savannah, these legacy buildings and so on. That type of work to fix those 110 housing units require technical and highly specialist products, equipment and human resources. That is not something that ordinary housing contractors could deal with. Injecting soil and so on. That is not the flu shot, you know, that you call somebody and choke them. So those matters, the soil is the problem. HDC is responsible.
I am asking whether the board of HDC that included Newman George, the management and board that included Noel Garcia, they had oversight. How it works is that at a board meeting, they will receive reports of ongoing construction. And the board has the responsibility to supervise management, to look at the construction, what is happening, what are the problems, and let us intervene. So this is a breach of the fiduciary duties of the board. And a proper investigation must be had because you are dealing with $200 million and the infrastructure is failing. All building works are failing. The HDC failed to monitor, to supervise. The board has been found wanting. But here the classic now. Keith Rowley jumps up, beat his chest about some bond on the OS highway and so on. I want to tell Mr. Rowley, in case you don't know, do you know on these projects or on this project or on that site, there's no performance bond? There is no performance bond. We are reliably informed. So you cannot call back a bond. You cannot use the bond where there's defective work or where the contractor failed to deliver. Everyone know whether it's private partnership or is straight contract work with government. Every contractor, if you bill in one house, an outhouse, anything you bill in, you put what is called a bond. So the government or the the contracting party holds the bond. So in the event that you abandon ship, in the event that you give in defective work and so on, they have the bond. We are being informed, and I wanted the government to answer Camille Robinson-Regis whether or not there's a performance bond for this piece of work. This is contrary to the FIDIC rules. This is contrary to all normal legal contractual arrangements, where a contractor is coming to be engaged for in advance of in excess of $100 million project, but no performance bond. If that is so, that speaks now to something bordering on criminal accountability here. Because you cannot enter contracts that way without the bond, and whichever entity, body, whether it's the board of directors or who, approve those contracts without a bond, they must answer serious questions before the relevant authority. And I leave it there because I like how Rowley does talk a lot about bonds and so on concerning highway, but he didn't want to know about bond concerning the housing. And I was reminded during the discussion by MP Hussein that in amongst, when you spoke about the amount of money owing to people for wrongful dismissal and so on, that at the Port Authority, they fired a gentleman by the name, I believe, of Leon Grant. Fired him. Let me put it in a simple way. Stuart Young made a public statement on a PNM platform, and we have the statement. We have it. We can share it with you, the members of the press. Yeah.
He was awarded.
Right. We have the statement. We'll share it with members of the press. He went on a platform and said this gentleman or managers went and intervened. In a nutshell, let me tell you, there's something called the Carbo Star. The Carbo Star was being procured. And he's saying, Mr. Young said, we had forensic evidence, and I challenged them to go to court. We have the forensic evidence that says that this person or manager intervened, and instead of doing it through a broker, instead of doing it directly to the owners of the vessel, they went through a broker, and it cost the taxpayer $15 million a year. Outrageous, and we have the evidence, and go to court. And I could tell you without contradiction. Where was all the evidence in the courthouse? When the court was hearing the matter, where was Stuart Young and this evidence? Justice Ricky Rahim didn't see it because he ruled that they acted contrary to the law. That it was a wrongful dismissal in those circumstances. And the particular person, was not liable. That they acted contrary to the law. That is what the ruling is in the Ricky Rahim matter involving Leon Grant. But Stuart Young, we have him on tape saying he has all the forensic evidence, man. Go to court, I could tell you without fear of contradiction where the forensic evidence was, where it was planted. So I leave that there, and I will close by one matter in closing now to tell you that the TNTech rate issue, this speaks to another period of dire poverty, of destitution, of hardships by the people of Trinidad and Tobago, particularly the workers. I make 2 points here, and I make the point. The government, a few days ago, beat their chest in the parliament. Increase in minimum wage. We are so happy to give you increase in minimum wage. They can increase the minimum wage one day, and the next day they increase the tea and tech rate. So all the effect of minimum wage goes down the drain. Because you are going to pay more for your electricity bill, and you are paying monthly. You are paying monthly. So minimum wage went down the drain when you increase utility. But it's not just utility. When supermarkets have to pay more for their freezer, their fridge, keeping meat and so on, who's paying for that? The business community will transfer rate increase to customers. So the customers, the ordinary man and woman, has to pay increase now for goods and services, including grocery, fuel, everything, supermarket, hardware, everything. They have to increase because the hardware using electricity, the pharmacy using electricity, everybody using electricity. They have a double shot. The ordinary person in this society have 2 shots they got. First, they have to pay more for their light bill. And secondly, the manufacturers, the business community transfers that consumer. So the consumer pay twice. And we are paying for the inefficiency, the mismanagement, the waste of tea and tech. The government is using the ordinary man and woman to pay for tea and tech's inefficiency and waste and corruption in some cases. That is what this is about. They want to raise revenue for tea and tech. So they jam the small man, so to speak, and he pays now twice from his pocket directly for the increase, and through buying and consuming goods and services, he will pay as well. And I think there's a wonderful article today by Dr. Valmiki Arjun in the newspaper that speaks to the repercussions of this and the implications to manufacturing. It was stated that one of the advantages this country had in our glory days of the partnership and UNC and so on was that we were an attractive investment site. When you raise energy prices like this and electricity and so on for large-scale industrial endeavor, they will seek lower energy prices elsewhere. They will seek better facilities and better incentives elsewhere. So this is also hindering investment. And I call on the government, as Senator Mark did before me, to please rethink this matter and intervene, rethink and intervene, so that we do not have this oppressive rate hike vis-a-vis tea and tech. And Mrs. Prasad Bisasa said it. I mean, people, will not want to admit it, her enemies and so on. Before the election, Mrs. Prasad Bisasa went on record. She said after the election, there will be an increase in tea and tech rate. Boom, after the election, increase in tea and tech rate. Now, I feel sorry to tell you we told you so, but we told you so. We did. And the opposition picked this up as well early in the ball game because we knew what was happening. The final matter, I took note this week as from a matter of crime and security. The police made 2 large seizures of arms and ammunition. We are very happy that guns and weapons and so on are getting off the street. But we also took note that the police indicated that they did months of investigation and so on. But they are unable to arrest persons for these type of offenses, serious offenses. And one wonders, why is it so difficult to arrest people? Are these guns and ammunition just packed up somewhere, nobody is guarding it, nobody is watching it, nobody is visiting the scene, nobody is in control, nobody is claiming, some custody of it? But we are concerned, the country is concerned that a lot of these seizures, as important as it may be, and it is, that persons are not being arrested and prosecuted for these things. Then there are issues of fingerprinting this type of weapons, subjecting it to forensic analysis, whether it was involved in crime or not. And the final issue there is whether these are legal firearms as well. Because the government is on record, Mr. Rowley, Mr. Hines, to suggest that one of the problems facing us now is the use of legal weapons for criminal activity. We wonder how much of these items they seize are legal weapons, meaning they're properly registered, properly distributed to citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. Those are some of the questions that we posed there. I think I have exhausted time on the matters. Unless there are some questions that take me elsewhere, I would just remove the bills at this time.
Dr.
Thank you.
to the treasury matter, are you concerned that the government might want to appoint a commissioner inquiry into that matter? And all that entails, considering...
Well, as I indicated earlier, I'm calling for a public independent inquiry, not a commission of inquiry. This government approach to commissions of inquiry has led to millions being wasted, extensions, delays, changing everybody. I mean, they will change a tea lady in a commission of inquiry just now. But certainly in the society, there are still men and women who are independent, impartial. You can look at retired judges, you can look at retired public officers and so on, and conduct proper inquiries into these type of activities. But the HDC and the Ministry of Housing cannot investigate themselves because they are coming up with one cock and bull story after another. The Minister of Housing telling us, well, the contractor say he will take care of that. Madam Minister, this is not a door fall off. I mean, this is not a glass from the Louvre's drop. These are serious things. Multi tens of millions of dollars have to be spent here. Which contractor going to get $200 million to fix a $100 million project? The HDC and the Ministry of Housing cannot be involved in this investigation because it concerns the supervision and the legal duties of the Board of Directors, of which both Mr. Newman George and Mr. Noel Garcia from management and board have serious questions to answer.
I just wanted to ask quickly, Dr. Munilal, there is a number of concerns with the highway, right?
Yes.
The leg of the Point Fortin highway that ends in Davie, that was once synonymous with a lot of death. Prior to when they would have implemented the bins and proper lighting and the strips along the roadway, that particular stretch, that end of the highway was really, really one that claimed a lot of lives, right? Are you concerned that with the absence of signage and lighting, we already recorded deaths on that Point Fortin highway? Do you think that perhaps, if there's no sort of immediate action, we can see, further loss of lives on that particular highway?
Well, why I raise the matter is that having drove on the highway just yesterday, and I drove admittedly in daylight. I didn't trust myself driving in the night because I wasn't sure about the lighting and so on. I took the drive because I wanted to see, what is happening and so on. I was very concerned that there are parts of that highway where there are steep curves, and even when you are driving at a moderate speed, you have to exercise more than due care and attention to stay on the roads, and without even painting, without reflective devices, without flickering devices, without proper signage in some cases. When someone is driving at a speed and only last minute discover that the turnoff I'm supposed to take is 100 meters in front of me, they will be prone to pull because the signage doesn't come. And I had to navigate myself carefully because it involves leaving the highway at 2 or 3 points and coming back on the highway, so to speak, because they open segments. They didn't open a highway that way. And there's need for much more signage. In fact, when I was returning, I took the wrong road, as I said, and ended up somewhere else and had to turn and come back because I did not see any sign before telling me, 400 meters turn off to San Fernando, as the case may be, just using that. So I'm very concerned. I'm extremely concerned, and my heart goes out to the relatives, the family, friends of those who perished already. And we extend our condolences to those families. But let us not have to extend condolences next week to our next family, because I think this requires an emergency intervention for proper signs, for safety devices, particularly when you see a situation where the highway is incomplete. It is in pieces. So obviously you have to leave road, come back on road. Obviously you have to be alert as to where you have to go and not go. Obviously, because when you are driving on a stretch, you will see a piece of tape pull across the road. But it means that way before you have to be told, please bear left or bear right, as the case may be. But not only that, there are other things. The road that exit the highway, some of those new roads and so on, properly paved and so on, they don't have yet some safety sign and devices and so on. And I want to call upon Minister Rohan Sinanan and the ministry to do some emergency work as it relates to the safety and security. I dread, and I really don't want to be in a position in the next few days to extend condolences to another family that may find a fatality on that brand new highway. But having said that again, I take note that the highway was our project. I mean, it took only about 25 minutes or so between San Fernando to Point Fortin, using all the different places. It will be much faster, I imagine, when the highway is fully open. But I'm not sure about that because the government took a policy decision not to construct from Debe to Mondesir, which was the subject of a controversy. But a lot of infrastructure was done there. So again, you're looking at a next waste of what could be $80 million in infrastructure, not used because they cut the highway into pieces. And that's a matter which I'll probably talk about on another occasion.
I just have my final question.
Sure.
Before you start to articulate your points, you mentioned an incident took place in Turuba at the Ramlila site, right? And you cited the instance of perhaps religious intolerance. Is this a particular concern for you? And it's not the first time we've had incidents where places of worship would have been targeted, etc. Is this a particular concern?
It is a very deep concern that the society is now drifting in a direction of intolerance and hate. And the world, parts of this world, as you know, is also consumed with hate and intolerance. And it's a very sad day when this rainbow society, as described by a South African clergyman many years ago, is very sad when this society reaches this state where churches, mandirs, mosques, religious events are attacked in a manner to suggest hate, in a manner to suggest, because there's no item of value that you can steal at a Ramlila ground. I mean, all our costumes really, with kite paper and so on, So there's nothing you can steal. There's nothing of great value. But to burn all the props and equipment and that type of thing suggests a type of hate that we do not welcome. And again, I want to connect this to governance. When a society is driven in the way this is being driven by people who make speeches that attack different groups in a derogatory manner, people who make speeches that are vile, that are rude, that are discourteous. And we know it. I mean, there are people who make speeches that are vile, that speak to underline intolerance and hate. That speaks volumes. I mean, I gave an example earlier. I think it's uncouth. It is crude. It is classless to be speaking about a judge of the Supreme Court and speaking about if he get up and drink babash, he will make a ruling against the government for $1 billion. You see, those are the little things. Those are the tiny steps that we take in the society that lead finally to hate, to insensitivity, to expressions of violence. When we start off with those little things, we may think it's small, but they add up. They add up. It's like, a snowball coming down the hill, the mountain, and they build because leaders put hate into the public domain. They put hate by the way they talk, by the way they conduct themselves, by their approach to governance and to public institutions. And I think it's something that the society needs to look at. And this is something very, very serious. And again, I want to join my parliamentary colleague, Dr. David Lee, in condemning this act and in expressing outrage and deep concern. And to the people of Taruba and surrounding districts involved in this Ramlila. Ramlila is a very, very important time of the year in the Hindu calendar. It speaks to the return of Lord Rama to Ayodhya, and it is something of celebration. It is really the defeat of evil. But even when you try to defeat evil, evil has a way of, rearing its head. If there are no other comments, I'll ask MP Saddam Hussein to just give us some closing remarks, and we'll end there.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Munilal, for that very comprehensive discourse on very serious matters affecting governance, transparency, and accountability in Trinidad and Tobago. As you all know, that the budget debate will continue in the upper house this week. I believe that the sitting will commence again tomorrow, and we have a lineup of our opposition senators who will also be bringing some of these very serious matters to the concern of the government and the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So we ask you to join us again, and keep safe and enjoy the festivities that are taking place for the following week. Thank you very much.